what would look like a viable, practical alternative that would be better?
Yes, but that didn't involve changing the way they made their relationships. That view for many, many years, going back, for example, the Fabians and so on. And what happens is that people use marginal cases as being central. So, and as I've already said, it's undoubtedly true that many marriages were oppressive, and that being in an unhappy marriage is a horrible experience. It's a terrible experience. It's a long form of torture. But people then thought that there was a perfect solution to this problem. There's a perfect solution to human relationships. And there is no perfect relationship, perfect solution. There's only better and worse. And whatever form of human relationships you're going to have, there are going to be terrible ones. But you, as far as I could see, and I had no real opinion about this until I actually immersed myself in the world in which I did immerse myself, it's quite clear to me that without a formal structure of relationships, things are absolutely terrible for very large numbers of people. Now, of course, it's perfectly true that I saw, if you like, only the failed cases, but there may have been.
The question then would be, well, where would you find the successful cases? Because let's think this through, because it's a crucial point, you know. Okay, so you have a biased sample, and maybe you approach this from an ethically conservative perspective, and so that produces your viewpoint, and it bears little relationship to the real world. But let's look for the counterexamples. So, well, first of all, you can't look among the high-functioning middle to upper classes for counterexamples because they're all married.
Yeah.
Right? So then you think, well, is there a subset of people who are poor, who are flourishing in their serial relationships, in their fragmented serial relationships? And well, first of all, probably not, because they're poor, right? By definition, you've already excluded the middle and upper class. So I'm kind of curious about.
Well, I tried to think, I thought, well, how is someone living in these circumstances supposed to get out of this situation?
Right. What would look like a viable, practical alternative that would be better?
Yes, but that didn't involve changing the way they made their relationships or pursued their relationships. So we have to keep the relationship, the structure of the relationships the same. What else can they do that would make their lives better? And I just couldn't see how their lives could get better while you have this kind of free for all. Well, it wasn't really free for all; it was free for some. And so I came to the conclusion that it was a social and cultural disaster.
Well, so we could look at the fantasies of sexual libertinism, let's say, and I think a good place to look. And, you know, I might be way off base here, but whatever, I'm going to forge forward. Let's look at Playboy, because Playboy was the first mass market magazine that sort of introduced the idea of sophisticated sexual freedom into the mass audience, right? And that quickly degenerated into Penthouse and Hustler, and then to this bloody online catastrophe where everything goes, and it's a cesspit of unimaginable proportions. But in any case, back to Playboy. Well, you know, you have two sophisticated people. The woman's in her early 20s. The guy's maybe 5 years older than that. They both have a glass of, you know, nicely aged wine. They're sitting in a 50s living room that's sophisticated, discussing literature, and they're both free to make their choices, and so they have sex. And then maybe your life is an unending sequence of those perfect dates. It's like, Well, what are the preconditions for that? For that even to be possible? Well, you both have to be young. You both have to be attractive. You both have to be healthy. You both have to be rich. You both have to be educated, in all likelihood, so that you're not rife with psychopathology, so that that can be an enjoyable and civilized evening, let's say. Well, you have to have come from a pretty stable family, probably one with mother and father intact, and certainly not characterized by the constant unwanted serial switching of partners. I mean, it's virtually unattainable except in an unbelievably protected environment. But you're in that environment and you think, well, I could, maybe you're in a marriage and you're unhappy, you have all those attributes. You think, well, I could jump out of that into this fantasy. And everyone could share the fantasy, but no, they couldn't. It's not possible.
But I mean, actually, what people are really doing, and I mean, one of the most important figures in modern cultural history is Marie Antoinette, who played shepherdess, who went out and thought it would be nice to be a shepherdess and went out to be a shepherdess for the day, but then always returned to her palace. And this is what these people are doing, because probably they give up that life at some point. The people, the rich people you've described, and they actually settle down, more or less.
Oh, well, if they don't, they're not happy about it.
Yes.
Right. If they don't, it's because they failed to get what they're actually aiming for.
Incidentally, one interesting thing was that I would talk to single mothers, about what they wanted for their daughters. And what they wanted for their daughters was for them to find a nice man who would have a good job and would treat them decently. And they'd buy a house and so on and so forth. So, but they had no idea how to encourage them.
Right. They have no idea what the micro elements are.